Tales that didn't make the cut in my upcoming book, Fucked Up Fairy Tales, Sinful Cinderellas, Prince Alarmings, and other timeless classics. My book is a global, diverse collection of fairy tales and folk tales, so I hope to include two Indigenous American tales. One was a Lenape tale about the horned serpent, and the other was a coyote tale that's attributed to the Ponca and Oto nations. But neither story made it into the book for various reasons. So there's a preferred procedure for sharing First Nations and Native American tales as a non-Indigenous author and storyteller. That procedure is to seek permission directly from the people whose tale you would like to adapt. And even that is sort of dicey because some tribes have multiple registered nations that you might need to reach out to, and they might not agree. Some have tribes that are not federally recognized, which doesn't necessarily mean that they aren't someone to reach out to, but there's also some unregistered tribes that other nations believe are pretendians, and so it's just very hairy and complicated. And if one member of a tribal nation gives their blessing but another has concerns, like, does that mean it's okay to move forward with it? Not every person is representative of their culture. There's a lot of questions with few concrete answers. So I contacted leadership from any registered tribe affiliated with the two tales I was interested in adapting. I never heard back from anyone representing the Lenape Nation, and honestly, that's totally understandable. Whatever the reason, I couldn't get through to those folks, so that tale was nixed. The coyote tale was a whole different matter. While I never heard back from the government of the Oto people, I was able to connect with the cultural director of Nebraska's Ponca Nation, as well as a Ponca writer. And I got some great feedback on the story from the writer, but the problem was whether this story was correctly attributed to the Ponca people. The cultural director I spoke to, who was a storyteller in his own right, had never heard of the tale other than in this one source I found it in. I tried digging deeper into the history of this collection. The collection was co-authored by an Indigenous folklorist, but there were no records available that specifically addressed whether this coyote story actually came from a Ponca or Oto storyteller. And it's a really raunchy tale. In some ways, it's kind of problematic, and that's not unheard of for coyote stories, because he's a friggin' rascal, but it is understandable why a tribal nation might be reluctant to feature it as their one story in my collection, especially if they're not sure that that's an accurate representation. So the best decision was to cut that tale as well. And unfortunately, at that point in the process, I didn't have time to make replacements. Seeing how long it took to iron out the issues with these two tales, I was just worried that I wasn't ever going to get that permission and I was going to have to fill these gaps. So it was a really good lesson for me to learn. I know that if I want to include Indigenous American folklore in a future book, I need to put more lead time into the project and research like a large handful of tales, knowing that a bunch of options might completely fall through. And luckily the book is not completely lacking for Indigenous folklore. I have two Latin American tales. One is a Mayan tale and the other is a Quechuan tale. There's an Indigenous South African folk tale as well in there, as well as an Indigenous Indian tale from the Muria folk. I was able to connect with sensitivity readers for all of those stories who gave me context and information that brought the stories to life so much better than I could have done on my own. I'll share some more behind-the-scenes info on which tales I considered, but which were cut from the collection. Really, the version that this book was going to be in the beginning is a little different than it is now. I'll also tell you about my experience working with sensitivity readers in future videos. And in the meantime, you can pre-order Fucked Up Fairy Tales literally wherever you buy books. If you need ideas for where to pre-order, you can find some direction in my corner of the interwebs. Truly, put it in your bookstore. Search it. It's there. Get it. Thanks for watching.